Welcome to Whispers of History, your sanctuary for slow, soothing journeys into forgotten corners of the past. Here, we trade the rush of the modern world for a slower rhythm, wandering through quiet lives and gentle tales, all wrapped in the warm hush of bedtime storytelling. So if you're ready, dim the lights, sink into your pillows, and let the soft pages of history lull you toward dreams. The room with a view of nothings. You wake up to the sound of birds, not exotic ones, sparrows. Loud, dusty, slightly judgmental sparrows who live just above your window frame. They've been there longer than you've been alive, and they don't particularly care about your sleep schedule. The year is 1662. The city is Isfahan, a masterpiece of domes and courtyards and tea, but you wouldn't know much about the courtyards. You haven't stepped outside in, about 27 years. Your name is You Are a Window Painters. The scent of an old plaster lingers in the morning sun, filtered through a latticework of carved wooden screens. That's your canvas, the windows. Not the kind you open, but the kind that filter dreams. You spend your days behind panes of stained glass and painted borders, giving color to the outside world you never actually touch. As outside the city bustles, merchants shout over pomegranates, camels snort, coins clink. None of it really concerns you. Your world is the delicate silence between brushstrokes. You probably won't make it through this day, not because anything dramatic will happen, but because your body will get cozy, your eyelids heavier, and the story, well, the story is made for drifting. So before we go on, if your eyes are still half open, consider liking and subscribing to Whispers of History. And if you're already halfway to dreamland, just leave a comment with your location and local time. We love knowing which corners of the world we're whispering to. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. You dip your brush in a little bowl of crushed lapis pigment, the blue of forgotten skis, and begin outlining a miniature falcon on the upper right pane of a new commission. The buyer wants something that looks like the soul is flying, which is poetic if slightly impractical. A Persian window painting, known locally as when referring to the woodwork and when it comes to painting, is part architecture, part illusion, and part spiritual negotiation. It's said that the patterns cast onto the floor from these painted windows confuse jinns, which is either very metaphysical or very good marketing. You've never seen a jinn, but you once accidentally trapped a bee in a finished panel, and the buyer thought it was a blessing. Historians still debate whether window painting in Safavid Iran was considered high art or just the polite cousin of interior design. But in this household, with its creaking floors and lemon-colored light, it is a holy ritual, and you, its patient monk. Somewhere in the alley below, a copper seller is playing a flute to no one in particular. It's a little out of tune, or maybe just tired, like most things in this part of town. You stretch your back and look over at your lunch, half a flatbread, a small bowl of cold lentils, and 3 pickled garlic cloves arranged in an angry little triangle. Your stomach groans, but not with hunger, with routine. And then just like every other day, you don't eat yet. First, you paint the wings, then you eat. That's the deal. It's quiet again, except for the sparrows, of course. Well, the man who measures shadows. You drag the stool a little to the left, just enough to catch the morning light slanting through the lattice. It hits your work table at the perfect angle if you angle your mirror just right. You've spent the better part of 10 years adjusting this mirror. No one else would notice, but you do. Now, today's task is deceptively simple. Restore the border of a window commissioned by the old spice seller across town. He insists on having pomegranates painted along the edges because he believes they ward off envy. You believe they're difficult to paint, especially when the seeds have to look like tiny rubies, and none of them are allowed to be symmetrical. Heaven forbid they be symmetrical. Your brush hesitates. You don't start. Instead, you look at the shadow crawling across the wall. It's from a mulberry tree outside. Well, technically outside the neighbor's courtyard. You've never seen the tree itself, but the shadow visits every morning like an awkward relative who doesn't stay for tea. The mulberry shadow tells time better than your brass water clock. You remember when your cousin tried to invent a sunproof paint using boiled vinegar and egg whites. It peeled off in 3 days. The cat walked through it and left ghost paw prints across the floorboards for months. No one speaks of it now. An obscure tidbit of the day. In 17th century Persia, some people believed that painting certain flowers on windows could influence the temperament of a household. Chrysanthemums for peace, carnations for ambition. You once accidentally painted a daffodil on a merchant's prayer room panel. He reportedly divorced 3 weeks later and took up pigeon racing. Coincidence? You say nothing. Historians still debate whether this floral superstition was based on folk belief or just a clever ploy by bored artisans to have a little fun with their patrons. You lean toward the latter, having once convinced a noblewoman that a violet in the corner would bring poetic dreams. She sent you a poem 2 months later about a dream where she argued with a talking goat. You count that as a win. The border is half done now. You've forgotten your lentils. They've formed a thin skin, the culinary equivalent of a sigh. You dabbed the brush in a soft maroon and begin the final seed. Just one more pomegranate seed, and the window will be ready for delivery. Which means someone will come collect it. Which means you will hear footsteps. Which means, for 15 seconds, you will make eye contact with someone who has walked more than 20 feet in a straight line this week. Exciting. Your foot brushes against a rolled-up carpet by the bench. It's been there since autumn, waiting to be aired. You tell yourself you'll do it next week. You won't. Because there's always one more window to finish, one more edge to fix, one more shadow to watch. And besides, it's peaceful here, where time is a series of colored lights crawling across old wood, and the only thing louder than silence is sparrows. Tired feet and tailies through glass. You've decided, after much internal deliberation, to reheat your tea. Again, it's the 3rd time today. By now, the cardamom has surrendered, the leaves are bitter, and the sugar at the bottom is doing its best impression of geological sediment. But it's warm, and warmth in this house is less about temperature and more about ceremony. You set the chipped cup beside the window frame, careful not to let condensation kiss the border you've just finished. Pomegranate seeds do not respond well to surprise moisture. Neither do your knees, come to think of it. The kettle sings in the next room, not a joyful tune, more of a don't forget me again kind of whistle. You shuffle over the creaky floorboards, counting them like usual, 13 steps. Always 13. You've thought about rearranging the furniture to make it 14 just for balance, but that would disturb the rhythm of the house, and this house is sensitive. Now today, while waiting for the tea, you do something bold. You sit, not on your stool but near the northern window, the one with the faint purple arch and the green glass shaped like a tulip. This window doesn't face anything in particular, a brick wall mostly. But when the light is just right, between the call to prayer and the merchant's shouting match with his donkey, the glass comes alive. A mosaic of dusty lilac, jade green, and slanted gold pools onto the rug. You like to think of it as your private garden. You've never seen a real garden, but you've painted over 200 of them. It's often said that Persian window painters, particularly those who specialized in stained motifs, were closer to poets than to craftsmen. A well-known phrase in Safavid court circles was, "A good window knows more than a bad husband." There's no official source for that quote, but you suspect someone's grandmother coined it mid-divorce. Your own family, scattered. A brother who left for the coast years ago, supposedly working in sea spice trade, though you're convinced he just wanted a reason to wear silk pants and talk dramatically about storms. A cousin who tried to sell fake dates in the bazaar. And your mother, whose last letter came wrapped in a scrap of orange cloth scented faintly with saffron and longing. She asked if you still painted birds. You do, every Tuesday. Historians still debate whether window art reached its peak in the capital or in the provinces, where artisans were left to invent odd combinations, like tulips that breathed fire or parrots made of moon shapes. You'd argue that the provinces had more freedom. Fewer rich clients to please, more odd birds to paint. Today you feel a little provincial yourself, a little untamed. Though the tea cools again, you sip it anyway. As outside, the sun begins its slow crawl down the sky, casting longer shadows through the painted tulip. The effect is that of a garden in dusk, sleepy, slightly drunk on light, and somehow mournful. You think about repainting this window one day. Maybe, if your knees agree. For now, you sit back, let the colors spill across your lap, and pretend the world is made entirely of quiet glass and warm, slightly disappointing tea. The neighbor's nobility and the rumor of a peacock. The door rattles. Not a full knock, not a demand. Just a hesitant like a pigeon considering whether you're worth the trouble. You don't answer right away. It's not personal, it's just you like to finish the line you're painting. The border of the spice cellar's panel has taken on a slight shimmer in this light. You admire it. You debate whether to add one more brushstroke. All this up again. Yusai placed the brush gently into the porcelain dish and shuffled toward the door, 13 steps, as always. When you open it, she lives 2 doors down and makes her living weaving incredibly itchy blankets that people pretend are soft to be polite. She's holding a basket of dried apricots and judgment. "I'm still painting windows," she asks, as though you might suddenly have taken up wrestling or goat herding. "Yes," you say, "then thank you," as she hands you the basket. The apricots are more seed than fruit. You suspect they were meant for trade, not kindness. But they smell like last summer and look like wrinkled pieces of sunset, so you nod as though honored. The leans against the doorway, uninvited but steady. "Did you hear?" she whispers, voice rich with purpose. The new nobleman moved into the mansion across from the spice quarter. You blink, "What mansions?" "The one with the tiled peacock on the outer gate. No one's lived there for years. They say he imported a real peacock, with golden tail feathers." You raise one eyebrow, she nods. "Real gold, the bird can barely fly." Historians still debate whether Persian nobility actually kept golden peacocks, or if this was a metaphor for their useless extravagance. You suspect both are true. Eyes your panel, the pomegranate seeded one, and sniffs. "Not bad," she mutters, which from her is practically applause. She lingers a moment more, then leaves with a rustle of her impossibly itchy shawl trailing the scent of cumin and dried onions. You close the door, count backwards this time, 13, 12, 11. The apricots go on the table and your hand returns instinctively to your brush. You paint one more border. Then, inspired by a moment of pure and unnecessary rebellion, you sneak a tiny golden feather into the corner of the window. You smile just a little. The sparrows outside go silent, as if stunned by your daring. You tell no one. Not even the panels. Pigeons, poetry, and the problem with blue. You're painting with blue again. Not just any blue, that blue. The infamous, exquisite, maddening ultramarine made from ground lapis lazuli, traded all the way from, more expensive than saffron, more temperamental than and just as likely to vanish if not sealed properly with egg glaze and prayer. You open your little walnut-wood box, where the powdered pigment rests in a velvet pouch like a diva between performances. The sight of it alone makes you feel a little richer, though your last real coin was spent on lamp oil that turned out to be mostly vinegar. You mix it carefully with water, grind it gently against a slab of marble, then add a dash of binding agent. The resulting color is somewhere between an ancient sky and a secret. There's an old poem that says, "To paint with true blue is to ask the heavens to behave." Whoever wrote it clearly never lived with a leaky roof and pigeon infestation. The pigeons have returned, by the way, at least 6 of them currently occupying the ledge above your best window. You think they're holding a meeting, possibly a coup. One of them stares directly at you, head tilted, as if questioning your life choices. While you stare back, you don't blink. Eventually, it blinks first. You count that as a win. Back to the blue. Today's task is a delicate dome-shaped window meant for a bathhouse near the river. The client wants a cooling effect and insists the room should feel like walking through water without the wet. You're not a magician, but you are persistent. You begin with ripples, long, swirling waves that mimic calligraphy. Not letters exactly, but something in the spirit of vowels. Then small fish. Then a few patterns that suggest bubbles rising, although, to be honest, they could just as easily be onions. Artistic ambiguity is your trademark. An obscure tidbit of the day. In some Persian bathhouses, it was common for musicians to sit behind lattice windows and play soft melodies to bathers. The logic was that music would make the steam feel more noble. You once painted a panel for such a place and accidentally made the lyre look like a squash. They still thanked you. Historians still debate whether the bathhouse musicians were trained professionals or just the cousins of whoever owned the place. Either way, the acoustics were reportedly quite good. As you shade in the last bubble or onion, depending on the viewer's opinion, your hand begins to ache. A dull, familiar stiffness in the knuckles. The kind of ache that tells you it might rain soon or that you're not 20 anymore. You flex your fingers, roll your wrist, and remember the herbalist who told you to soak your hands in wine vinegar. You did it once. The vinegar got into a cut. The screaming lasted longer than the relief. Instead, you reach for the old clay hand warmer. A small dish filled with warm stones that you tuck beneath your scarf near the wrist. It smells faintly of mint and smoke. As outside, the sun begins to dip and the pigeons shuffle to make room for one more. A larger one, probably the boss. You imagine it wearing a little turban and issuing orders about droppings and crumb collection. Your brush makes one final pass through the blue. The panel is complete. You step back, let out a breath, and tell the pigeons, "That's the color of a dream, you know." One of them poops on your sill. A bread brass and the girl who sang to tiles. The morning again. The house smells like old ink and flatbread. You forgot to put the ink caps on last night, so now everything smells like a scholar's pocket, dusty, mysterious, and faintly acidic. But the bread is fresh. You trade 3 painted scraps of tile every month to the baker's wife in exchange for her extra flatbread. She says your artwork reminds her of the ceiling in her aunt's house, the one that collapsed. You take that as a compliment. Now today, your task is unusual. Not a full window, but a single replacement pane for a large brass merchant near the southern gate. He broke it in a rage, reportedly after discovering his second son had accidentally sold a shipment of candle wicks instead of silk threads. You can understand the frustration. Wicks are rarely lucrative unless someone is starting a very specific kind of revolution. The pane must match the others, swirling red vines on a clear glass background. It's not your usual palette. Red glass is harder to control, and the client insists on a specific shade like pomegranate juice left out in the sun. You nod, pretend to understand, and begin mixing with silent doubt. The pigment comes from crushed insect shells. No one likes to talk about it, but it's true. Your workshop has a jar labeled Vermilion Secrets that's mostly beetle bits and prayer. You begin painting. Steady, careful, red vines with curling leaves that twist like dancers. You used to watch dancers once, before you stopped leaving the house. Before the world shrank to the size of a single window frame. Though that was when she still sang. It's obscure memory now. A girl across the alley, apprentice tile worker, used to sing while glazing pieces for the bathhouse walls. Off-key, joyful, unapologetic. You never saw her face, only her scarf fluttering in the wind like a lazy flag. But her voice lived in the corners of your house long after she stopped singing. You still hear it sometimes when the pigeons quiet and the light gets soft. Historians still debate whether women were allowed to work independently in tile workshops during the Safavid period. Official records are vague, and many signatures are lost beneath the glaze. But voices, as it turns out, are harder to erase than ink. You add a tiny hidden signature to the corner of the pane. Just a small flower barely visible behind one of the leaves. Now you tell yourself it's for balance, for symmetry. Now you know it's for her. The red glass catches the evening light. The vines glow, almost pulse. You lean back, fold your aching hands, and let yourself feel just a little bit proud. You place the panel by the door for collection. Wrap it in linen, tie it with a fraying cord. Then you sit and you wait, and you listen for a song that hasn't been sung in years. The door that no one uses anymore. There's a door in your house that hasn't opened in 17 years. It's not locked exactly, it's just forgotten, or rather deliberately unremembered. The kind of door people walk past and pretend is part of the wall. A perfectly good door, made of cedar and brass with a crescent-shaped handle and a chipped tile near the base that you've always meant to fix. Once it led to a courtyard. Now it leads to silence. You pass it every day on the way to your pigment shelf, on the way to the kettle, on the way to not quite doing stretches because your back sounds like a percussion ensemble. And every time you pass it, you wonder if today's the day you'll open it again. So today you pause just for a moment. The sunlight from the main room stretches to the bottom edge of the door like it's trying to knock quietly. A little sliver of warm gold on old wood. But you don't open it. No, not yet. It's instead you return to your desk where a new commission awaits, a tall, narrow window for the midwife's home. She wants lilies, white lilies, with the thinnest outline of silver leaf like moonlight at dawn, she wrote in the note. Poetic for someone who routinely elbows newborns into the world. While you respect her deeply, you begin by sketching the first lily in charcoal, letting your hand follow remembered curves. You've painted lilies a dozen times, but this one feels softer. Less about anatomy, more about breath. A breeze flutters the edge of your notebook. You freeze. The breeze came from the back of the house, which is odd because nothing ever moves back there. You glance at the door still closed. You tell yourself it was probably the sparrows. They've been getting bolder. One of them, the round one with the missing toe, has started scratching the windows like it wants a tour. An obscure tidbit of the day. Some Persian households believed that doors unused for more than 10 years became sleeping thresholds, places where the veil between the seen and unseen grew thin. Superstition said such doors should be covered in jasmine branches during the new moon or spoken to gently before repairs. While you've done neither, and historians still debate whether this belief was rooted in Zoroastrian rituals or just a clever way to keep children from playing near crumbling hinges. Either way, the door seems to be breathing today. You refocus lily petals, silver outline focus. The breeze brushes your ankle again. You paint faster. The visit that didn't happen, except it did. Buys your humming. You didn't mean to. You never do. But something about painting silver on lilies makes your chest feel less tight, like someone opened a small hidden window inside you that you forgot was there. You hum an old melody, the one your aunt used to sing while folding laundry and swatting flies like a warrior poet. You haven't thought of her in years. And then the knock. Not at the front door. As at the door. The door. It's unmistakable, a soft, deliberate knock. Like someone who knows you'll hear it but doesn't want to be rude. A librarian's knock. You freeze, your brush hangs midair. The silver glistens on the tip, trembling like a guilty secret. You wait. Nothing. You tell yourself it was the sparrows. Again, or maybe the wind. Or maybe your back cracking in a particularly persuasive way. You get up. You cross the room, the tea is still warm, the lilies still glow faintly, the door still closed. But now there's a shadow under it, just a faint one. Stationary, like someone on the other side waiting patiently as if they too haven't moved in 17 years. You speak softly, hello. The silence answers like it always has, slowly, gently, and without any explanation. You step back. You don't open it, you just stare. And for the first time in years, you remember what's behind it. It's a courtyard, overgrown now surely. A fig tree, a broken clay jug, a carved bench where you once fell asleep in the rain and no one woke you because they said you looked peaceful. The echo of a girl's laugh, not the tile singer, a different girl. One who threw pomegranate seeds at your head until you made her a frame shaped like a lion. While you breathe in, you could open it. But not today. Instead, you sit back down, hold the brush, and dip it once more in silver. And because the moment deserves it, you add a lily just barely peeking through a crack. A flower trying to grow through a wall. The panel is complete. And outside, the sparrows are silent. And inside, you keep humming. And somewhere, perhaps in memory or dream or hidden courtyard, someone is still knocking. A letter without an address and a smudge that stayed forever. The morning arrives with that familiar, slightly smug glow that Isfahan wears when it knows the sky is clear and the breeze just sharp enough to make the laundry dance. You wake slowly, wrapped in the warm smell of yesterday's lamp oil and the sharper tang of ink. Someone left the pen uncapped again. It was you, of course. You wipe your eyes with the corner of your sleeve and shuffle toward the desk, where an envelope sits that absolutely did not exist the night before. It's thin, cream-colored, slightly crumpled on the edges. No seal, no name. No one brings you letters anymore. Not since the post boy got tired of climbing the stairs for someone who never replies. You stare at it, you turn it over, and then perhaps foolishly, perhaps sleepily, you open it. Inside is a single piece of paper, no larger than your palm. On it, in pale, almost reluctant handwriting, it says, "Oh, you should repaint the fig tree." Oh, that's it. No greeting, no signature, no instructions on which fig tree or where. Your hand trembles slightly, and you realize it's not from fear, it's from memory. Because there was a fig tree behind the door, in the courtyard that hasn't been opened since the sun was more interested in you. The same tree you once painted in shades of warm with dark green shadows that made people swear they could taste the fruit. It's not even a commission, it's a suggestion, a whisper, a nudge from a time that no longer has your address. You place the note beside the jar of brushes. It looks out of place there, too soft, too unfinished. Like something that wandered into your house while lost and decided to stay. You reach for a clean pane, you sketch the outline of a fig tree, but your hand slips and the charcoal smudges. You try to erase it, but the smudge stays a soft, stubborn fingerprint of time. An obscure tidbit of the day. In certain Persian miniature traditions, fig trees were seen as symbols of secrets kept and stories never fully told. One painter in Shiraz reportedly hid tiny lovers' names in the roots of every tree he painted, until he was caught, rather dramatically, during a wedding. Historians still debate whether fig trees were included in windows to bring prosperity or to subtly reference family drama. Given your own experience, both feel plausible. You spend the rest of the morning painting the tree, branch by branch, leaf by leaf. Not lush, not young, this one is older, more crooked with a few leaves missing. A fig tree that remembers things even if no one else does. At the very base, you let the smudge remain. You convince yourself it looks like a shadow. Oh, but it doesn't. It looks like a memory that refused to wipe clean. Oh, the stranger with the blue hands. You hear the footsteps long before the knock. The soft leather on stone, slow, deliberate, like someone who's read about speed but never tried it. A stranger's pace, confident in its unfamiliarity. You wipe your hands on your apron quickly, as if embarrassment leaves faster than pigment. The knock is gentle, not hesitant, but polite. the kind you give when you already know you'll be invited in. You open the doors. The man standing there is tall, with a beard too symmetrical to be accidental. His robes are travel-worn but expensive, dyed in muted indigo with gold thread cuffs. And his hands are stained blue. Deep blue, lapis blue. The kind of blue that takes weeks to fade and longer to forget. While you stare at them, he notices, smiles. I was told you're the only one who can paint windows like they remember their own dreams. You blink. That sounds like something I might said about myself once. He laughs. It's a quiet sound. I need a window, just one, for a study room. It will face the east, where the sun never quite makes up its mind. You nod slowly. Do you have a design in mind? I trust your instincts, but no birds. You're startled. No birds. They watch too much, he says without irony. I want a window that forgets, a window that sees nothing, a private kind of light. You don't argue, not with someone whose hands are stained with truth. He pulls out a pouch. It jingles not with coins but something heavier. You peek in. Stones, raw lapis chunks, some the size of olives, others like broken teeth. As it's yours for your time. You accept the pouch. It's cold, slightly damp. An obscure tidbit of the day. During the 17th century, lapis lazuli was so valuable that merchants smuggled it in loaves of stale bread to avoid imperial taxes. One famous scandal involved a bakery that accidentally sold a jeweled loaf to a visiting ambassador's dog. The dog reportedly glittered for a week. Historians still debate whether these smuggling tales were real, or just bakery gossip given wings. You place the pouch on your desk. The man turns to leave, then stops. As if you ever open that back door, he says without turning around, you might find the fig trees still blooming. You don't ask how he knows. Though the blue on your fingers is darker now, you haven't even touched the stones. You sit at the window, sketching nothing. For once, that feels like a good beginning. A window that wants nothing in return. You sit with the blank glass for a long time. As it stares back at you, not with judgment, but with the slow, curious patience of something that has all the time in the world, which, if you think about it, glass sort of does. Unlike people. The pouch of lapis lies just to the left of your elbow. You haven't opened it again. You don't need to. The weight of it is presence enough. Some stones hum even when untouched. You're certain these do, or maybe it's just your joints again. You've been asked to paint a window that forgets. One that watches nothing. Sees no birds, no gardens, no sky, just light, quiet, unbothered light. Though that's harder than it sounds. You lean back and let the silence gather. It's the kind that dust loves. The kind that settles in corners and makes you realize how many corners your house has, far more than necessary. You should really count them someday. The sketch you make is simple. Circles that never close, lines that stop before they want to. shapes that echo the designs on ancient bowls or the patterns left behind by water stains. The kind of things that don't mean anything unless you need them to. An obscure tidbit of the day. There was once a painter in Tabriz who only painted windows with one color, pale green. He said it reminded him of silence. When asked why not white, he replied, "White expects something." No one ever questioned him again. Historians still debate whether his work was genius or just an elaborate protest against clients with bad taste. One of his windows still hangs in a seminary, where it's rumored students meditate so hard in front of it, they forget their own names. While you look down at your sketch again, the design you've drawn doesn't resemble anything, and yet it's yours. And that, you think, is what the blue-handed man wanted. Still, before painting, you stretch. The kind of deep, aching stretch that pulls on bones you forgot you owned. Your knees pop like small, regretful fireworks. As a pigeon thuds against the ledge. Not a graceful landing, just a thump and a shuffle and a very annoyed coo. You glance up, it's the boss pigeon again. You hold up your hand, palm out. Not now, you say. To your mild surprise, it leaves. You dip your brush into water, then into the softest pigment, a faint, ghostly with just a whisper of blue. And for the first time in days, you paint without remembering anything. Which is, strangely, a kind of remembering all its own. On the day the roof nearly gave advice. As it begins with a creak. Not your knees this time, though they do contribute, but the roof. Specifically, the southern edge of the ceiling above the shelf where you keep spare glass panes, broken teacups you swear you'll repair, and that one scroll you never returned to the cleric's library. The creak is long and slow. The kind that's meant to sound harmless right before something dramatic happens. You look up, just in time to see a tiny puff of dust float down like a drowsy ghost. You don't panic. You've lived in this house for most of your life. You know the difference between creaks that threaten collapse and creaks that just want attention. Still, you move the shelf. Behind it is a wall you haven't looked at in over a decade. You find a spider colony. A very successful one with a complex tax system and possibly a mayor. You nod respectfully, then gently relocate the operation with a broom and a soft prayer. But beneath the cobwebs, a surprise. A chalk drawing. You're the drawings. The faint, almost erased. A sketched peacock, uneven, lopsided, far too proud of its tail. You must drawn it when you were young, before you understood symmetry or shame. You run your fingers over it. The chalk smudges just slightly, as if it's been waiting for you. You laugh, not loudly, just a soft puff of breath through your nose. The kind of laugh meant only for ghosts and memory. An obscure tidbit of the day. It was once customary for young Persian artists to hide practice drawings behind shelves or under carpets, believing that unfinished art draws away mistakes. A kind of visual superstition, like eating the last olive on the plate for luck. No one remembers why, but everyone does it anyway. Historians still debate whether these rituals helped artists or simply delayed cleaning day. You wipe away the last of the peacock, but something stubborn remains, a bit of blue chalk that won't vanish, like it's clinging on purpose. Well, you don't fight it. You paint around the smudge later that day in a new window, a wide panel meant for a spice shop. The client wanted something energetic, which you interpret as not too sleepy but still good for napping near. You design the window around swirls. Cinnamon spirals, chili threads, saffron veins, the imaginary ingredients of light. And in the corner, just where the panel meets the frame, you let the chalky blue shape stay. Well, you tell yourself it's a mistake, but it looks a lot like a tail. So the roof doesn't creak again that day, as if it approves. A day with too much sun and too little shade. The sun arrives early today, earlier than usual. It pushes through the shutters with a sort of aggressive enthusiasm, like a neighbor who brings breakfast uninvited but then rearranges your kitchen. It's not a gentle sunrise. It's the bright, chatty kind, the kind that says, "Wake up, there's dust to judge." You squint at the golden slats streaking across your floor. There's a warm rectangle inching toward your feet like a slow, glowing cat. You don't move. If the sunlight reaches you before you're ready, it wins. You can't have that. Eventually, the rectangle touches your toes. You sigh. The light wins again. You rise with the grace of a man whose back has read too many warnings. The floorboards groan as if annoyed that you dared to sleep at all. You shuffle to the kettle, lift the lid, find it empty, and for a moment consider going back to bed entirely. But no, you're expected today. Not socially, not by a person, but by a window. It's the long one in the side room, a tall panel meant for a hallway in a school for girls. The commission came wrapped in linen with a polite note. We'd like it to feel like courage but quiet, like when a girl first speaks in a room full of men. You read the note twice, then a third time, and then you sat very still, thinking about the sound of that moment, not the speech, but the silence that comes just before it. You choose green, deep green, not the playful green of fig leaves or the sharp green of unripe apricots, a darker green, patient, still. And gold, because gold never apologizes for being noticed. Your brush moves slowly, deliberately. The lines begin to twist into patterns you don't recognize until they're already halfway done, vines that grow upward but never sideways. A kind of quiet ambition. You pause only to sip your now questionable tea and listen to the pigeons wrestle over something on the roof. Possibly a dried fig, possibly dominance. An obscure tidbit of the day. In certain old schools across Persia, teachers would hang stained glass above the front of the classroom not just for light, but to remind students of structure, the idea that beauty could live in discipline. One headmistress reportedly used a red and purple window to shame idle boys into focus. It mostly gave them migraines. Historians still debate whether this architectural technique actually improved learning. or just made everyone slightly dizzy by noon. You take a break to stretch. Your spine makes a noise like someone crushing a particularly dry biscuit. You go to the courtyard door. You place your hand on the handle, but not to open it, just to feel the wood. There's warmth in it, faint, like a sleeping thought. You press your forehead to it, whisper something even you don't hear, and return to your brush. The window needs finishing. Girls are waiting for courage. The tea that knew too much. You make better tea than you admit. Not excellent tea, you're not a magician, but the kind of tea that understands how tired your hands are, and how much effort it takes to lift the cup some mornings. You pour the water, watch it swirl the leaves like gossip in hot water, and wonder why you never painted a teacup. Not once. You've painted birds, flowers, suns, even a child once insisted on a goat riding a comet, but never a cup. Maybe because it already holds so much. Painting one would be redundant. You sit down by the window with the steam curling around your face and you realize the house is too quiet. Not peaceful, too quiet. The pigeons are missing. You stand, cup in hand, and walk slowly, quietly toward the ledge. They're gone. As every last one. You blink, you've never seen the ledge without them. Not in years. And then you notice something else. On the ledge sits a single object, round, glassy, faintly glowing. Some marbles. But not just any marble, one of yours. You haven't made glass marbles since you were 12. A short-lived obsession that ended when you dropped a batch and stepped barefoot onto your own art. You never made another. This one is different. A deep blue with a swirl of copper running through it like a frozen flame. It glints in the light. Your initials are etched faintly on one side. You bend down, pick it up, hold it to the lights. It catches the sunlight and splits it not into colors but into a shape. A vague outline, a tree. No, a branch, a fig branch. You almost drop it. An obscure tidbit of the day. Persian glassmakers during the Safavid period often embedded small symbols in their marbles and beads, a protection, memory, secrets. One recovered bead from a ruined workshop had a name hidden in it that was only visible at sunset. The name translated loosely as not yet forgiven. Historians still debate whether these were purely decorative or a form of coded communication between artisans. Many suggest it was both. Art, after all, is rarely just one thing. You place the marble on the sill, right in the center. Let it watch for you. The pigeons return an hour later, as if nothing happened. They land around it, but none get too close. You sip your tea, it's colder now, somehow richer. You say to no one in particular, "All right, I'll go to the courtyard tomorrow." No one answers. But the marble glows a little in the afternoon sun. And that feels like enough. The courtyard remembers before you do. You wake with a clarity that unnerves you, not the usual fog, not the stretch and groan of joints demanding apologies, just wakefulness, as though your body has agreed for once not to argue with the idea of moving. The marble still sits on the window sill. It catches the morning light like it's practicing sorcery, flaring soft rings of amber and blue across the floor. Even the pigeons seem quieter around it, shuffling with reverence, like monks at the edge of a sermon they don't understand. Now you rise slowly and wrap your scarf twice, even though it isn't cold. Because today you open the door. You approach it with all the ceremony of a man about to excavate his own memory. The handle is smooth, worn from years of being avoided. You half expect it to resist you, to creak in protest, to crumble into dust and metaphor. But it turns. Though the hinges groan not dramatically but with an old man's sigh, and the light spills in. The courtyard is smaller than you remember. Or maybe you are larger now, not in size but in understanding. There's the fig tree. Gnarled, leaning left, as if it's been trying to peek through the window all these years. Leaves shimmer in morning dew, and the base of the trunk is surrounded by a lopsided ring of stones you vaguely recall placing when you were young, because someone told you fig trees needed company. There's the broken clay jug, exactly where it fell 17 years ago. Its pieces have not moved, but a stubborn vine now curls through the center as if it has decided the jug is a vase after all. There's the bench. You used to lie there and trace shapes in the sky with your finger, nomming clouds after people you hadn't met yet. And then there's the spot half in shadow where she used to sit. The girl from before the silence, the one who laughed like cracked sunlight on tile, the one who asked you once, what if we painted a window that lets in dreams instead of light? You never answered. You step onto the stones, your knees wobble. The fig tree shivers, no breeze. An obscure tidbit of the day. In certain Persian rural beliefs, fig trees were thought to hold memories. Some families planted one for each child born, believing the tree would grow in sync with the child's character. If the tree bent or cracked, they'd check on the child. Historians still debate whether this belief stemmed from animist traditions or was simply an elaborate excuse to plant more figs. You reach out and touch the bark. It's rough, knotted, and warm. You say softly, "I'm sorry for being gone so long." Something falls, a single fig. It hits the stone with a soft plunk, perfectly ripe. You pick it up. You do not eat it. Instead, you sit on the old bench and place the fig beside you. And for a moment, you don't think about windows or pigments or the commission waiting on your desk. You just sit and remember. The color you never had a name for. When you return to your workroom, everything smells different. Not dramatically so, but like something slightly shifted, a trace of moss perhaps, or the warm scent of sunlit wood. The marble on the sill has rolled 3 inches to the left. Which, of course, marbles don't do. Not on flat stone, not indoors. You don't question it. You simply sit at your desk, pick up a clean pane of glass and begin. But this time the brush feels lighter. Your hand moves as though guided by something gentler than thought. You dip into your pigments, and without planning, without sketching, you create a color you've never used before. It's not quite green, not quite gold. A shimmer that lives between shades like rain caught in silk. It reminds you of the courtyard, of quiet shadows and blooming silence. You don't mix it, you just find it waiting in your tray. You paint without speaking, without blinking, really. The shapes emerge slowly, not patterns, but a kind of breath. Vines that don't climb but drift. Leaves that don't attach to anything but linger, as if remembering what it was like to be part of a branch. The whole piece looks like something halfway between blooming and dissolving. This obscure tidbit of the day. In one fragmentary record from the court of Shah Abbas II, a royal painter claimed he once created a shade of blue so emotionally specific that it caused a visitor to weep. The formula was never recorded. The painter's workshop was flooded 2 years later. All that survived was a note that read, "It was the color of an almost memory." Historians still debate whether the story is true, or just another romantic invention of lonely scribes. But you believe it now. Because the color you've painted, it doesn't have a name. It feels like something just remembered. Or maybe forgiven. You lean back, your shoulders ache, but it's the ache of completion. The window is finished. It doesn't show anything. It just holds light. And for the first time in many, many years, you don't think about what comes next. You simply let the light pass through. And for a few long minutes, you sit in it, your own unnamed color, and let yourself disappear. The smell of dust and the shape of music. It starts with a knock. Not at the courtyard door, not even the front. This time it comes from the rooftop, or near it, somewhere above and slightly to the left of normal. You're in the middle of rinsing your brushes. The water swirls with the color that still has no name, that almost memory tone, and for a moment, you wonder if perhaps that hue, like all good ideas, was borrowed from something else. Though then a second sound, this one unmistakable. Music. It's a high, thin note, like a flute played by someone who hasn't yet learned shame. It spirals down the alley, hooks itself around your chimney, and slips in through the window like an invitation. You know that tune, everyone does. It's a children's song, ancient, ridiculous, and oddly haunting. About a pot that cries because no one puts it on the fire anymore. You dry your hands on your apron and move toward the window. Below on the street, a girl dances. Not gracefully, but boldly. Her scarf flies like a flag behind her, her feet bare, her fingers stained in something dark, ink maybe, or fruit, or just the world. She twirls once, twice, stops, looks directly up at your window, smiles. Then she's gone. You blink not slowly. You close the window. Not because of fear, but because something about that tune always leaves too many doors open. Back at the desk, the light has changed. It's softer now. Older, you don't know how light ages, but this one does, like it's passed through books and memories on its way here. You sit again, and next to the now finished panel, you lay down a fresh sheet of paper and begin sketching. Not a window, not this time. An instrument. You're not even sure what kind. A hybrid of things, part lute, part flute, part something only birds can hear. An obscure tidbit of the day. There was a Persian craftsman in the city of who swore he could hear music in the way sunlight hit copper pots. He tried once to create a window that played notes when light passed through it. The result was a mosaic of bells, mirrors, and glass so delicate that it collapsed every time a cat walked by. He called it the quietest concert in the world. Historians still debate whether the craftsman was a genius, or simply trying to impress a woman who taught poetry near the spice stalls. While you shade the strings gently, each line a guess at a note. And as you draw, you hum the pot's song under your breath. The melody circles back to you like an old cat, familiar and slightly smug. You finish the sketch and realize it's not an instrument at all. It's a shape of something you once dreamed. And even though it doesn't make a sound, you hear it anyway. The visitors who live without knockings. You're sitting in the doorway again, the one that leads to the courtyard. Your elbows rest on your knees and your hands are stained with pigment, mostly blue, some copper, and a smudge of gold you don't remember using. The courtyard looks brighter now, not cleaner, not new, just noticed. The fig tree has 2 new leaves. The jug has shifted slightly, perhaps from the wind, perhaps not. And the bench looks less lonely, though you haven't sat on it today. You bring your tea out with you, still hot, still slightly bitter as it should be. And that's when you feel it. A presence. Not behind you, not beside. Through you. And as though someone has walked past, not touching your skin but brushing your shadow. You look up. No one's there. But the courtyard smells like something familiar, lavender. No, jasmine, crushed and worn into the folds of someone's sleeve. You whisper you came back. The wind doesn't answer, but the leaves rustle like applause. You take a sip. Behind you inside the house something falls. A gentle sound, the kind that says, "I've waited long enough." You walk in slowly. On your workbench, a window panel has shifted. This is the one for the school, the one with the gold and green and the vines that climb nowhere. It's tilted forward slightly. But something new has appeared in the bottom right corners. There's a mark. No, not yours. No, not a smudge, not an accident. A small curved shape like a smile or a sigh. You line in ends. It's a fingerprint. A fine faint traced in silver dust. An obscure tidbit of the day. Among Persian artisans, there was once a belief that every window remembered the first hand that touched it after it was completed. A kind of ghost memory, invisible unless summoned by light or longing. Some called it a blessing. Others called it a curse. Everyone agreed it was best not to ask too many questions. Historians still debate whether this was a metaphor or a complaint from overworked apprentices. You touch the edge of the panel gently, as if to say, "I see you." You do not wipe the mark away. Instead, you place the panel on the sill, let the light catch it, let it shine. And then you sit beside it, in the chair you rarely use. You don't paint. You don't draw. You just stay there. Listening. And for the first time in years, you leave the door open. The daylight refused to behave. The next morning arrives with a peculiar light. It's not the usual golden haze that tiptoes across your floor like a polite guest. Today, the light barges in bold, unfiltered, and far too aware of itself. It streaks across the workroom with the enthusiasm of a child let loose in a spice market. You squint at it, the shadows are all wrong, too sharp, too tall. It's as if the sun has forgotten how windows work. You stand slowly, cup in hand, and examine the panels lining the wall. They haven't moved. Yet the light has changed, bending oddly around corners, reflecting in strange places. One patch glows behind your water jug. Another shimmers inside a glass jar that, to your knowledge, has always been empty. You lift the jar. Inside is a scrap of paper. You didn't put it there. The paper is old, faded, folded precisely into a square like someone practiced origami once and gave up. You unfold it. The writing is slanted, rushed. Finish the line. That's it. No punctuation, no greeting, just that, finish the lines. Your first thought is confusion. Your second is memory. Because once, long ago, maybe 20 years, you began painting a lion panel. It was a commission for a merchant's son, some ridiculous coming-of-age gift. The boy wanted a lion with eyes like fire and teeth like justice. You got as far as the paws, then he changed his mind and asked for a horse instead. You never completed the lion. You never forgot it either. You kept the panel tucked behind a shelf, beneath old palettes and broken brush handles. You find it now. The wood is warped slightly, but the outline remains bold, unfinished, and oddly dignified in its half-completion. The paws are there, the tail curled, but the face is missing. You sit with it, brush in hand, unsure how to begin. An obscure tidbit of the day. In some corners of Persia, lions weren't just seen as symbols of power. They were considered metaphors for restraint, the ability to hold strength without using it. One poet described the perfect lion as a silent storm asleep in gold. The best lion paintings, they said, didn't roar, they watched. Historians still debate whether this lion imagery was a commentary on political power, or simply a cultural love affair with big cats. Now you dip into the soft. Now the face emerges slowly. No, not fierce, not noble, just present. No, the eyes are not fire, but patience. The mouth is closed. The fur is unruly, like it's grown wild in your absence. And when you're done, when you finally lay the brush aside, the light has changed again. It pools in front of the lion panel now. Not glowing, not dramatic. Just a continent. And for reasons you don't fully understand, you bow to it, the paintings, the light, or the memory. Maybe all three. Then you set it by the marbles. Let them watch each other. Letters with no ink and answers without questions. You find the book while looking for more linens. It's not your book. You don't remember owning a book with a green silk cover and edges that glint like they've been dipped in powdered stars. You turn it over in your hands. No title, no stitching. But the spine is firm, like it still has things to say. You open it. The pages are blank. Not empty, just blank. There's a difference. Empty things have space waiting to be filled. Blank things already contain what they need, you just can't see it yet. You flip through the pages, 37 in total, each one a shade off-white, some warmer, some cooler. One with a faint fingerprint in the corner. Another with what might be a tea stain or a crescent moon, hard to tell. You place the book on your work table and stare at it for a long time. It stares back. You pick up your pen, dip it in ink, hesitates. Then you write. What are you? Nothing appears. You wait. Then slowly a faint shimmer. A line of text rises from the page like steam. You already know. You blink, your hands are suddenly cold. You write again. Who left you here? The answer appears more quickly this time. You did. You close the book. Leave it where it lies. Then step outside for air. The courtyard greets you with a breeze that smells like fig leaves and dried citrus. The marble on the sill is glowing again, slightly, as if aware of something you are. You sit on the bench. The fig tree rustles. And from somewhere in the house, the back room maybe, or the folds of the wall, you hear a soft humming. Not music. Not words. Just a sound that says, you're not done yet. An obscure tidbit of the day. It was once said that every artisan has a shadow ledger, a record of the work they didn't finish, the promises left half-kept, the things that didn't turn into things. Some believed those unfinished pieces would someday return, asking to be completed. Some believed they already had. Historians still debate whether this belief was literal, symbolic, or just a quiet excuse for obsessive personalities. You glance at the book. You open it once more. And write simply. Well, what should I paint next? Well, the page waits. Now then one word appears. Yourself. The reflection that wasn't quite yours. You stand in front of the mirror, half expecting something dramatic to happen. A lightning, a whisper, a sudden wrinkle that wasn't there yesterday. But no, it's just you. Or at least, someone who has worn your body long enough to know how the sleeves should fall. You haven't truly looked at your own reflection in years. Not properly. Not for longer than it takes to tuck your scarf behind your ear or check if a smudge on your cheek is ink or lunch. Now the person in the mirror looks patient. Not old, not young, just practiced. Your hands are stained. The pigment doesn't come off anymore, not entirely. You've stopped trying. Each finger is a record of choices made in silence. A resume written in mineral. You turn slightly, glance at your shoulder where a streak of copper shimmers. You don't remember painting with copper today or yesterday. So then again, memory been a little theatrical lately. While you leave the mirrors, while you return to your workbench, today you begin the self-portrait. Not a painting of your face, that would be too easy. Faces lie, they're trained to. Instead, you paint a window. But this one is shaped unlike any you've made before. Tall, yes, but curved inwards slightly at the top, like a question mark that gave up halfway through forming. You fill it with things that feel like you, a half-finished branch, a sleeping brush, the soft outline of a hand holding a fig. You don't add a figure. No silhouette, no profile, just presence, echoes of motion. Like the way a house remembers its owner even when they're not home. An obscure tidbit of the day. In a letter written in 1687, a Persian philosopher described the idea of the invisible self-portrait, an artwork that says everything about its maker without showing them at all. He believed true portraits were made of objects. The chair, the cup, the window's edge, that is the shape of the man. Historians still debate whether this letter was ever published, or if the philosopher was simply journaling while drunk on pomegranate wine. You believe him, though. You step back from the panel. It feels familiar. Not flattering, not proud. Just honest. You place the panel where it can catch the light. You don't title it, you don't sign it. But you leave a smudge on the bottom corner. Your smudge. Just in case someone ever wonders who lived in this house with all the birds. The visit that didn't ask permission. It's well past noon when you hear the chimes. Not your chimes, yours are small, made of tin and memory hanging beside the front door. These are deeper, heavier. The kind that echo after they've finished ringing, as if the sound itself is unsure whether to leave. You go to the door, wiping your hands on a cloth already stained with 7 days' worth of intention. Standing there is a woman you've never seen before. Her robe is dark red, not the kind worn for ceremony, but the kind that hides road dust well. Her shoes are worn smooth at the edges, and around her neck is a single key hanging from a string. Zayuba. Oh, she says nothing. Instead, she holds up a bundle, wrapped in velvet, tied with silver thread. So she presses it into your hands like a gift or a warning. So then she turns and walks away. No, not fast, not slow, just finished. So you close the door before the air changes its mind. So the bundle is warm. You place it on the desk, untie it carefully like a letter from the past. Inside are three things. A brush, old but not yours. Bristles made of horsehair, handle etched with a faded swirl. A glass pane, unpainted, perfectly square, smooth as still water. And a note, not written in ink, scratched into the cloth itself with threads pulled away. For the window that doesn't open. While you sit down, stare at the blank pane. Then at the door to the courtyard. An obscure tidbit of the day. In desert towns near, it was said that certain glassmakers were chosen by the wind. These were artisans who would receive silent deliveries, bundles of tools, paints, or pigments left at their doors without sender or explanation. The items were never questioned. They were simply used. Historians still debate whether this was real, ritual, or just local pranksters with a poetic streak. While you pick up the brush, it feels like someone else's story waiting for your hand. While you touch it to the glass, and the first stroke comes easier than breathing. The windows that looked inwards. You begin painting the pane from the center, not your usual habit. Normally, you start from the edge and work inward, like trimming a garden or petaling a pomegranate with precise spirals. But this time, your hand moves to the middle of the glass as if guided by something older than muscle memory. The brush doesn't hesitate. It draws a shape you don't recognize. A spiral maybe, or a wave curling inward like a thought folding into itself. There's no plan, no sketch, just instinct, a rhythm. The horsehair bristles are softer than yours, they glide without sound. The stroke they leave is pale gold, but as it dries it changes, becomes translucent like honey in sunlight. You lean back unsure where it came from. You haven't used gold today. And yet here it is, curling across the pane with quiet purpose. You can continue. Lines emerge that mimic things you haven't touched in years. The shape of a folded scarf on a bench. The arc of your cousin's handwriting. The curve of steam rising from morning tea when the air is especially still. What are you painting? You're not sure, but it feels less like making something and more like remembering something in real time. By the time you set the brush down, your hands are trembling, not with fatigue, with recognition. Though the image on the glass isn't a picture, it's a rhythm, a pattern of being, a map of thought. A window that doesn't open but sees everything inside. You place it on the shelf beside the marble. It fits there perfectly like it always belonged. A obscure tidbit of the day. A forgotten sect of Persian mystics believed that every person carried a mirror of breath, an invisible window made not of glass but of memory. When someone painted with true intention, they weren't creating art, they were revealing this inner mirror for others to see. Now, historians still debate whether this was a metaphor or simply the overreach of a poet with too much hash and not enough sleep. You light a small clay lamp, let the glow pass through the painted glass. Though the shapes dance gently on your wall. You do not name the piece, but you speak to it softly. You know, Maisie. And for a moment you think it answers. The wall that whispered. Later that night you hear a sound. Not sharp, not alarming, just a low, soft tick like a knuckle gently tapping wood. It repeats once, then again. You sit up from your cushion and look around. And everything is still. The lamp is low, the room is warm. The brush jar is exactly where you left it. Then you hear it again. Dig. Though this time you follow the sound. It leads you to the wall behind the curtain, the one you haven't touched in years. It's plain, unpainted, faded from years of indirect sun. You once hung a calendar there, then forgot about it. You pull the curtain aside. Though the wall stares back. Nothing. But then your fingers brush over a crack you've never noticed before. Thin, faint, hidden like a seam in folded fabric. You trace it from left to right, then down. It's a door. Or was. Not a door to a room, a cabinet maybe, a storage niche. You push gently. The panel shifts. Opens. Inside is a small recess no larger than a bread box, but it holds a few objects dusty and deliberate. A scroll bound with faded red twines. A dried orange blossom pressed flat between glass. And a wooden box, carved with the same pattern you painted by instinct on the inward-looking window. Your fingers tremble. You open the box. Inside is a piece of glass. Smaller than a window, larger than a pane. All painted. With your hand. But not your memory. The brushwork is yours, the way the corners curve, the way the lines taper. But you do not recall ever painting this. It shows a courtyard, your courtyard. And someone sitting on the bench. You lining in. It's you. But younger, much younger. And you're not alone. Beside you is a figure half faded. A girl maybe, a blur in red. You hold something between you. A fig is split open. An obscure tidbit of the day. In a ruined artist's quarter near, once found a series of painted glass panels depicting daily life scenes from a single home, morning tea, courtyard naps, unfinished meals. The artist is unknown. Some believe the panels were never meant to be sold, only remembered. And historians still debate whether these were exercises in nostalgia or quiet acts of resistance against forgetting. Now you place the panel against the wall near the niche. Now you light a lamp beside it. And you whisper, "I remember now." Now the room exhales. And for the first time in many years, the silence doesn't feel empty. It feels complete. The smudge that changed the map. The next morning is gray. Not sad gray, not storm gray, just neutral, a sky the color of unspoken things. The kind of morning where even the birds think twice before chirping. You sit by the panel, the one from the hidden niche, and stare at your younger self. The posture, the slope of the shoulders, the unwrinkled hands, you remember none of it clearly, but all of it feels true. The girl beside you, or rather the shape of her, is still a blur. You wonder why you painted her without a face. Then you wonder if you even painted her at all. The panel doesn't answer, but something about it keeps shifting, not the image but the feeling of it. Every time you glance away and look back, the colors seem to have deepened, as if the painting is remembering itself along with you. You reach for a soft cloth to dust the corner of the frame, and as you wipe, your thumb brushes against a pale smudge in the lower right corner. As it wasn't visible before. You lean closer, it's a thumbprint. No, not yours. It's smaller, softer. Etched into the surface, not on it like it was pressed into the glass while the paint was still wet. You stare at it for a long time. An obscure tidbit of the day. In certain parts of rural Persia, couples would seal agreements, marriages, apprenticeships, promises not with signatures, but with matching thumbprints pressed into softened clay or glass. These thumbprints were often placed in secret corners, hidden from view but never forgotten. It was said that a thumbprint is a quieter kind of vow. Historians still debate whether this practice was widespread or simply romanticized in later writings. Most artifacts found bear only one print. You place your thumb gently beside it, not to match it, but just to say hello. The glass feels warm. Later, as you sip your tea, which is somehow both too strong and too weak today, you think about maps. You've never painted one, but you've always loved them. All those lines pretending to know where things are. And then it occurs to you, your home is a map. Is every room a region, every stain a landmark, every squeaky floorboard a mountain pass, and somewhere behind an unused door and a fig tree sits the center. You get up. You take out a fresh pane of glass. And you begin painting your house. No, not as it is, as it feels. A cartography of quiet things. The house unfolds beneath your brush. Not in straight lines or careful measurements, but in loops, swirls, and soft corners that only make sense to someone who's lived them. You start with the hallway, a long curve that bends like a question never asked. Then the kitchen, which you paint as a circle, warm and cluttered, with a teacup orbiting at the edge like a loyal planet. The workroom is a tangle of threads and beams and half-finished shapes, a chaos of intention. You paint it with wide strokes that overlap like conversations. The courtyard, of course, is the heart. But not just the tree and the bench. You add small things, the fig that fell, the jug still lining like it wants to nap. And there, near the door, you place a smear of gold, not shaped like anything, just a glow, like a memory that won't hold still. You paint your old room as a spiral. It was always the place you thought too much. The corner where your cousins spilled ink, the window you once tried to sneak out of and got stuck in, the wall where a dream once tapped you awake. And finally, the rooftop. Not as it is now, but as it once was, when you could climb there and watch the whole neighborhood breathe. You add the birds, of course, even the rude one with the missing toe. And you add the girl. Not her face, not this time either, just her shape seated on the bench. But this time her hand is extended. She's offering something round. A fig, or a marble, or the sun. You're not sure. An obscure tidbit of the day. A rarely studied school of Safavid painting emphasized emotional cartography, the idea that landscapes could be painted as feelings rather than places. Some maps showed rivers that represented longing, mountains for family secrets. One surviving map from 1643 depicts a city entirely made of closed windows. The artist called it "My Father's House." Historians still debate whether these maps were ever meant to be used, or if they were simply art disguised as geography. While you finish your map, as it doesn't look like your home, as it looks like your memory of home, which is arguably more accurate. You place it beside the inward-looking window. Let them talk. Then you sit down. And for the first time in a very long while, you write your name on the back. The stranger who knew the smell of your ink. There's a knock at the front door. Not polite, not hesitant, confident, like someone who knows you'll answer even if you pretend not to hear. You are halfway through painting the corner of a rooftop. Yes, another one when the knock comes again. You sigh, rinse your brush in silence, and make the short walk through the narrow hallway where light plays tricks on the tiles. 13 steps. You count them every time. Superstition or structure, you've never decided which. You open the door. The man standing there is unfamiliar. But he smells familiar. That peculiar, impossible scent, crushed ink, clay dust, and the faint iron note of old glass. The air around him carries the memory of pigments. His robes are plain, his beard is short. His expression is gentle but unreadable. In his hand is a satchel, worn leather, the kind that has spent decades in conversation with books and jars. I'm looking for the one who paints memory, he says. You say nothing for a moment, then step aside. He enters like someone arriving at a library. Quiet, careful, but sure he belongs. His eyes move over the room. The painted panels, the brush jars, the unrolled sketches, the marble. He touches nothing. I was told, he says, you once painted a window that stopped a war. You chuckle before you mean to. I painted a window that was supposed to be for a bakery. They used it as a peace offering between two cousins fighting over a spice stall. If that counts as war. He smiles. I've come to learn, he says, and maybe remember something I've forgotten. You gesture to the stool. He sits. And for the next hour you say nothing. Neither does he. The only sound is the wind through the lattice and the quiet clink of your brush tapping the rim of a water dish. You hand him a piece of glass. He hesitates, then begins painting. An obscure tidbit of the day. In one forgotten tradition of Persian guilds, master artisans would accept students not through tests or letters but by offering them raw materials in silence. If the student began to create, they were accepted. If they hesitated too long, they were thanked and sent home with tea. It was called the soft entrance. Historians still debate whether this tradition existed outside a single town near Hamadan. But every artist who's heard the story agrees it should have. You say nothing. You let the man paint. And quietly, in the space between your watching and his brushstroke. You remember what it was like to be taught without being told. The lesson of the unpainted frame. The man stays for 3 days. He doesn't ask for lodging, doesn't ask for food. He brings his own bread, flat, folded, and laced with something sweet. And he makes his own tea with a twist of dried herbs you don't recognize but like very much. You share your brushes. He sharpens one of them with a steady hand and a whetstone pulled from his satchel like a magician's coin. He never asks for instruction, you never offer it. Instead, you work side by side like old dogs under the same sun, comfortable in the same rhythm. On the second day, he finds a frame. It's tucked behind your pigment shelf, one you made long ago but never filled. Oak, deep-grained, polished smooth, with a curve carved at the top that mimics a rising cloud. He holds it up, turns it once. Why is this one empty? He asks. You shrug, I never knew what to put in it. He studies it like he's listening to an untuned instrument. It's waiting, he says. He sets it on the desk and begins to sketch. What he paints over the next hour astonishes you, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. Your courtyard, your workrooms, your quiet map, even the fig tree. All of it. But seen from somewhere you've never stood. And as if the house were remembering itself in reverse. And in the center of the panel, in the place where you would never dare draw a face, is you. Painted gently, not young, not wise, just seen. He signs it with a single character, a curled letter, a shape that means echo in an old dialect. You frame it silently, gratefully. An obscure tidbit of the day. In an obscure museum near Shiraz, there exists a window frame with nothing inside, just the wood, ornate, stained, engraved with lines of poetry. The plaque reads, "The artist painted everything but the view." Some believe it was an unfinished work. Others claim it was the artist's most personal piece, because it reflected whatever the viewer brought to it. Historians still debate whether this was genius, or just a forgotten panel that no one knew what to do with. So the man leaves the morning after. No farewell, no ceremony. Just the echo of footsteps and the soft scent of dried ink. You keep the frame he painted. You place it where the old calendar once hung. And every time you pass it, you nod once to yourself or to him. Or to the part of you that needed to be remembered. The storm that stayed outside. The storm comes in the early hours of morning. You hear it before you see it, a low rumble like a cart full of brass bowls rolling across the sky. The wind begins tapping at the windows, not quite asking to be let in, just making its presence known. A soft insistence. A reminder that nature still exists beyond your glass boundaries. You sit on your cushion with your blanket pulled around your shoulders, cup of warm tea in hand. Cinnamon this time, slightly too much. You pretend it's on purpose. Rain begins. The first drops are scattered, hesitant, a few notes played on a drum by someone who's forgotten the rhythm. Then, gradually, it becomes a song. A steady, whispering percussion against the roof tiles, the windows, the fig leaves. You've always loved rain. Especially from inside. You walk through your home slowly, barefoot, letting the cold of the floor seep into your skin. Each room sounds different in the storm. The workroom is soft, muffled. The kitchen is lively, with echoes. The back hallway sounds like a memory being stirred. You reach the courtyard door. The fig tree is bowed slightly, not in fear, but in appreciation. The jug beneath it has filled an inch with rainwater. A small petal floats inside like a boat with no destination. You don't step outside. You open the door just enough to smell the world. Damp earth, stone, and that clean scent that only arrives when the sky has cried enough. You sit by the threshold and watch. The house is safe. The storm is outside. There's something comforting in the contract between the two. An obscure tidbit of the day. In several Persian provinces, it was customary to place an unfinished painting in a window during a storm, a superstitious gesture meant to remind the weather that beauty still had work to do, and thus it should pass gently. This was called offering the wind a task. If the painting survived, it was considered blessed. Historians still debate whether this tradition was rooted in Sufi mysticism, or simply invented by painters who didn't want to finish commissions during the rainy season. You select a half-painted panel, a bird with one wing, and lean it against the inner sill, just close enough for the wind to see. While you whisper to it, be kind today. Though the wind doesn't answer, but the rain falls softer for a while. Though the ink that wouldn't dry. So that afternoon you return to the book. The green silk-covered book with no title, no author, no certainty. You've left it untouched for days, allowing it to rest beside the marble and the lion and the inward-looking window. It has absorbed the silence well. On today's, though, you open it again. The pages are still blank. Except one. On page 17, a single word has appeared, dark and glistening as if written moments ago. Now, while you sit down at your desk, take a brush, dip it in your ink. While you write, now what? No reply. Though the ink does not dry. While you fan the page gently, still wet. While you wait, still wet. You place it in the window light. After a full hour, the word still gleams. No other page reacts this way. It's only 17, only now. You try to write elsewhere in the book. Page 2234, the brush refuses. The ink beads up and rolls away. The paper stays dry. You begin to wonder, is this book not meant to hold words? Is it only meant to deliver them? You sit for hours watching that single word. Eventually, the sky darkens again. You close the book carefully. Rewrap it in cloth. Place it in a drawer with the brushes you no longer use. This obscure tidbit of the day. In one fragment of a letter from the 1600s, a Persian glassmaker wrote, "Some ink knows time. It dries when the hour is wrong and disappears when you aren't ready. I had to wait 3 years for my poem to fade properly." The letter was never sent. It was found folded in a drawer beside an empty inkwell. Now, historians still debate whether this was artistic metaphor or the onset of something much stranger. You leave the drawer slightly open. Just enough for the word now to breathe. And you return to your work table with nothing in mind but the joy of an empty pane. You begin painting without knowing what for. And the ink, when it comes, dries perfectly. The light that traced your name. The next morning begins not with birds, not with rain, but with light. Not sunlight, not yet, but a soft glow that seems to rise from inside the walls, as if something in the house has begun to wake before you have. You lie in bed watching how it moves, tracing the lines of the old ceiling beams stretching slowly down the wall like it's remembering the path it took yesterday. It's gentle, familiar, but slightly off. You rise. Barefoot again naturally, a ritual now. The floor is cool, your bones creak in quiet negotiation. You follow the light to your workroom. It's not coming from the window. It's coming from the marble. The same marble that sat undisturbed for days, watching the seasons, ignoring the pigeons. Now it glows faintly, as if something inside has finally found its voice. So you pick it up. I'll hold it to the light. Though the copper swirl inside has shifted, it used to spiral. Now it loops into something else. A symbol. I'll use squint. It's the first letter of your name. Just barely. Just enough. You set it down slowly. And glance at the wall across the room, the one where the morning light always hits first. Today on that wall, the shadows have formed something curious. A pattern, a shape, letters again. Your name. Spelled by branches, reflections, slats, dust. Not written but formed. It fades within seconds. But you saw it. You said. You say your name aloud, slowly. It echoes in the room like it hasn't in years. You hadn't realized how rarely you speak it. An obscure tidbit of the day. Some Persian mystics believed that your true name was not the one given at birth, but the one that light revealed to you in stillness. They taught that during one's life, if you ever saw your name written by the world itself through rain, light, leaves, flame, you were meant to follow it wherever it led. Historians still debate whether this practice led people to spiritual enlightenment or frequent head injuries from walking into ponds while staring at shadows. You don't know what the light meant today. You only know you felt seen. And after so many years painting others, remembering others, honoring others. Though that feels like a beginning. Though the frame that refused to stay empty. You spend most of the day trying to paint something new. You set up the glass, prepare your brushes. Mix the pigment, a warm amber, the kind that usually brings comfort without being showy. But your hand won't move. And every stroke you start, you stop. You try painting a scene, a fig tree at dusk, a teacup half full, a hallway flooded with afternoon light. But nothing stays. You wipe the glass clean again and again until your cloth smells like effort and indecision. And then you remember the frame. The oldest one, the one you carved when you were barely tall enough to see over your grandfather's table. Uneven, thick-grained, marked with your earliest ambition and none of your current polish. You've kept it all these years. Hung it once, then removed it, then forgot it. Now it lays quietly behind the doors. You retrieve it. It's small, barely the width of your, and carved with shallow floral impressions that once felt like masterpieces and now feel like charming attempts. You place it on the table, and then you do something odd. You don't paint. You place a pane of clear, unpainted glass inside. You hang it in the kitchen window. Though the frame holds nothing. But the light passing through it changes shape every hour, bending on the edge of the wooden flower carvings, catching the grain, forming small halos on the opposite wall. It is the most peaceful work you've ever done. An obscure tidbit of the day, In a lesser-known tradition among early Persian artisans, it was said that every artist should leave one piece intentionally absent. A frame with no image, a page with no script, a song with no final note. These were known as the resting pieces. Not incomplete, just patiently empty in case something one day needed a home. Now, historians still debate whether this was a spiritual, aesthetic, or just a convenient excuse for laziness. You smile. You don't sign the frame, you don't name it. You only sit near it each morning now. And when the sun pours through that blank glass, it never looks the same twice. And that is enough. All the visitors you never met. They arrive in the evenings. Not at once, not together, not even with purpose really, but one by one as if summoned by something in the air. The way fruit flies gather around sweetness or cats appear the moment you open something warm. You don't invite them, you don't need to. The first is a boy. 10, maybe 11. His shoes are too big, his eyebrows are too serious. He stands outside your gate, staring at the sky like it owes him something. You watch from the window, he doesn't knock. Just looks up, then down, then traces a circle in the dirt with his toe. Eventually, he leaves. The second is a woman in green. You never see her face. Just the color of her sleeves as she passes by your courtyard wall, trailing her hand along the stone as if she's trying to read its history by touch. She hums low and low and low, a tune you almost recognize. By the time you open the door, she's gone. The third visitor is the strangest. He arrives as a smell. Yes, a smell. It's a scent so familiar that it grips your chest. Rose oil, cracked leather, the dust of travel, and something faintly metallic, like the scent left behind by ink on an old letter. You know it. But you can't place it. It lingers for hours. An obscure tidbit of the day. In certain Persian mountain villages, elders told stories of the unseen visitors, souls that traveled not in form but in presence. They would arrive in scent, in sound, in dreams. If you sensed them, you were supposed to leave out something small, a cup of water, a circle of salt, a folded cloth. Something to say, I know you came. Historians still debate whether this tradition stems from Zoroastrian ghost lore or simple human loneliness, wearing ritual like a coat. That evening you fold a cloth. Place it by the window. Leave out a shallow bowl of water. And sit. Not waiting. Just aware. Because sometimes not being alone has nothing to do with company. And everything to do with memory, choosing to revisit you in its own way. The night that forgot it was night. You stay awake longer than usual. Not because of worry, not even out of intentions. The night simply forgets to be dark. It glows. The sky above Isfahan, normally velvet and still, is alive tonight not with stars but with light. Soft blue, lavender, and warm blush hues. as if someone had taken the idea of dawn and spilled it early just to see what would happen. You stand in the doorway with a shawl over your shoulders and let your breath fog the air. The courtyard glows too, not from moonlight, but from the reflection of all your windows. They're all catching it. The ones you painted, the ones you left blank, the inward-facing ones, the lion, the map, the spiral, even the smudge-marked piece from the hidden niche. All of them shimmering with borrowed light, each one showing not the night but a softer version of day, a memory of color held in glass. And in the center, the fig tree rustles like it's adjusting its own posture. You step outside, barefoot again, of course. The stones are cool but not cold. While you sit on the bench, let the air wrap around your shoulders like a half-remembered song. While you speak softly to the tree, you're still here. It says nothing but drops a fig anyway. You laugh. And in the silence that follows, something beautiful happens. The windows stop reflecting the world, and begin reflecting each other, each pane catching light from the next, a ripple of color bouncing in slow motion, a conversation of memory and light. The walls glow with 1,000 unspoken stories. Your stories. And suddenly, it feels less like a house, and more like a memory that let you live inside it. An obscure tidbit of the day. In a 17th century Persian manuscript, a wandering scribe wrote, "When enough windows face one another, time folds." He claimed to have seen moments blur, identities dissolve, futures appear in the reflections of the past. Most dismissed his writings as metaphor, others feared they were. You sit until the light fades, until the stars remember themselves, until the night remembers to be night again. And when you finally rise and return indoors, your footsteps are lighter, as if you've been forgiven. Or perhaps as if you've finally forgiven yourself. The fade-out window. You wake slowly. Not because the light calls you, but because the house doesn't. And everything is still. The pigeons are unusually quiet. The fig tree casts no shadow. And the air smells like linen and memory. You move room to room barefoot. You don't count the steps, there's no need. The marble is dim now. The book is gone, vanished from the drawer as if it never belonged here at all. The frame you hung with clear glass now reflects the room instead of letting light through it. A mirror made of quiet decisions. You sit at your work table one last time. You pick up a fresh pane, place it in the frame. But you do not paint it. Instead, you breathe onto the surface, fogging it gently. And with your finger, you draw. One line, a small curve, a quiet spiral. Then you let the breath fade, and the glass becomes itself again. You sign nothing. You name nothing. You rise, stretch your arms, feel every crack and pop like a bell tower waking for the final chime. Then you open the courtyard doors. The wind greets you soft and warm. The fig tree bows. You walk into the lights. Not boldly, just peacefully. Because you've told your story. In the color, in the silences, in the glass. And now, while you rest, the story fades now, slowly, like color slipping into dusk. Let the silence settle across your skin like a cotton shawl still warm from the sun. There is nothing to hold on to here, nothing pressing, nothing undone, just the memory of a home that watched you as much as you watched it, a fig tree that never stopped offering its fruit, a house that remembered more than it spoke, and windows, always windows, whispering secrets through filtered light. You feel the gentle weight of a life well lived, a life in slow motion, measured not in clocks or calendars but in brushstrokes, footsteps, falling figs, and forgotten laughter. A life not wasted in its smallness but made meaningful by its stillness. The panels still hang, the marble still rests. Somewhere someone else will pass this house and feel the hush of your presence, not loud, not grand. Just there. You breathe slower now. The storm has passed. The tools are clean. The last cup of tea has cooled beside the window, and the shadows on the walls have softened into sleep. Close your eyes if they aren't closed already. Let the house carry you, let the wind hush you. You've painted enough for now. You've remembered enough for now. You've been enough for now. Good night, window painters. Sleep well. And when you awake, let the first light remind you that even glass can hold love.